right, we're going to go ahead and get things started. So welcome to our virtual webinar series. If this is your first and only one of today, we're very glad you're here. My name is Maggie Karchnia. I'm with the University of Minnesota Water Resources Center and Minnesota Sea Grants. I'm joined today by Paula Kalinowski from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, as well as three of our great case study folks, Evan Sieben from the City of Woodbury, Justin Dauphiné from Coon Creek Watershed District, and Tim Olson from Bolton and Mank. So welcome, panelists. So this is brought to you by the Clean Sweep program, which was created a few years ago with the goal of providing cities and MS4s with all the tools and resources they might need in order to do targeted street sweeping for water quality. We receive funding from a variety of sources, including the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, the University of Minnesota, the Stormwater Research Council, and of course the Clean Water Land and Legacy Amendment. So I'd like to thank our funders for all their support. This is the last in our four-part series today. So we talked about why sweep for water quality. We talked about developing a plan. We talked about the quick estimating tool. And now I get to see these success stories in the state of Minnesota, which I'm very excited to hear from. And with that, we're just going to jump right in. So first up is Justine Dauphiné from Coon Creek Watershed District. She's the water quality coordinator over there. And welcome, Justine.
All right. Thanks, Maggie. Morning, everyone. I'm here to talk to you about sweeping for water quality in the Coon Creek Watershed District. So to orient you, if my slide would advance. There it is, the Coon Creek Watershed District. We encompass about 107 square miles in the North Metro, fully within Anoka County. We have parts of 7 cities. We also have Anoka County Highway Departments and MnDOT sweeping in this area. So we have 9 sweeping programs in this area. Why are we interested in sweeping for water quality? Well, my slides aren't moving. It's because we have a lot of pavement and a lot of impaired waters. So all 4 of our receiving waters are impaired, as well as the Mississippi River. They're impaired for things like sediment, phosphorus, bacteria. Half of them are impaired for chloride. These are all pollutants that you can sweep off the roadway. We're also interested in protecting our unimpaired high-quality lakes, and we're interested in sweeping for cleaner drinking water. We're up in the Anoka County Sand Plain, so our surface water is our groundwater. So as many of those contaminants we can get off the pavement before they go in our infiltration basins is a big win. And we're situated immediately upstream of the drinking water intakes in the Mississippi River for the cities of St. Paul and Minneapolis. So our kind of challenge became, how do we go about thinking about this? How do we quantify all of the costs and benefits of 9 different sweeping programs? By those individual programs for things like MS4 permit requiring and TMDL compliance reporting, but also with a focus on the receiving water and just how far can sweeping get us toward getting our impaired streams off the impaired waters list. And we wanted to also identify some of the unique barriers that our different sweeping programs were facing and figure out how, we might help address those and sweep more. So our program kind of started in 2022 with the planning phase. We hired EOR to do a pretty intensive study. It was 2 parts. The first was a big data gathering effort. What is everyone doing for sweeping? What are those program costs? What are the TMDL credits? And then we used all that information we compiled to do a cost benefit analysis of sweeping scenarios through various models and calculator tools. And then just last year, we kind of started the implementation phase of trying to put those study recommendations on the ground. So here at the district, we launched a cost share program. It's pretty small. It's very simple, about $150,000 available per year, requires 50% match. And basically anything that helps you achieve enhanced sweeping is eligible. So we're asking for kind of city or road authority led proposals. And then if the proposal is so big and so expensive that this doesn't put a dent in it, we also offer assistance kind of securing additional funds like state clean water funds. And that's been really popular with our road authorities. Some of our kind of like major study results so far is we were able to identify priority areas for sweeping, looking at things like tree canopy cover, what kind of existing watershed treatment is on the landscape, how are these roads and curb lines connected to our receiving waters or not. And then we went through and quantified cost benefit of, our existing efforts, kind of optimized efforts, not sweeping more, but sweeping smarter by priority area, and then a variety of kind of increased efforts. And I don't have time to get into all the numbers on the table here, but kind of that increased scenario is our long-term, maybe 10, 20-year goal of what we hope we can achieve kind of district wide. That's going to take the participation of, 9 different sweeping programs. And then we were able to provide some kind of customized recommendations for each MS4s of kind of next steps they could take towards achieving this collective goal. Just a couple examples of what we have underway. Oh, we're going backwards. There we go. So far, we've had 3 cities apply for cost share and reach out to us to seek some more funding. So we have the city of Coon Rapids. Their biggest issue was materials management. We cost shared on a new screener, which has allowed them to sweep more. Right now, they're hiring contracted sweeping, but they're looking at doing that for a 3-year pilot and then growing internal capacity. We have the city of Spring Lake Park. They were relying solely on contracted sweeping just twice a year. We have helped them secure purchase of a new sweeper, and they have increased their effort from twice a year to up to 10 times a year in priority zones. And we have the city of Fridley, kind of whose biggest barrier was high canopy cover with leaves. So they're trying out kind of a new leaf vacuum and trying to optimize effort there in their high tree canopy areas. So I think I am out of time. So just to leave you with my contact information and some lessons learned. I guess talk to your streets crews and minimize the administrative burden of your funding opportunities would be my parting advice. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Justine. That was excellent. All right. Uh, Next up on our list is Tim Olson. He is with Bolton and Mank, and he has worked up in the city of Forest Lake to do some great street sweeping planning up there. So take it away, Tim.
Yeah, hi, thanks, and good morning, everyone. I really am here on behalf of the city of Forest Lake this morning. I think the success of their street sweeping program, was largely driven by their effective partnerships, right? The Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District, their staff, their engineered EOR really drove a lot of the early project planning here in Forest Lake. And then, the city has used the Bowser Clean Water Fund and Rice Creek Watershed District for some other cost share opportunities here for their enhanced street sweeping program. And so without those partnerships, I think the city of Forest Lake wouldn't have had the success that they do. So we'll jump in here when the slide advances, a little bit of a delay. There we go. So in 2017, the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District applied for an accelerated implementation grant. To develop the street sweeping, enhanced street sweeping plan. In 2018, the city of Forest Lake, with their funding partners at Comfort Lake Forest Lake and Rice Creek, applied for an additional $220,000 to purchase the actual sweeper. And so since 2018, the city has been working with the enhanced plan to evolve it, based on experience. We've been using some educational wraps, which we'll talk about here later on. And then also, this very popular MS4 tracking that we've been hearing about all morning, with great success towards their TMDLs and waste load allocations. We've seen versions of this before all morning. My apologies for some of the redundancy here, but the original enhanced plan looked at both quantitative and qualitative assessments. I think back in 2018, with some prior work done in the Prior Lake Spring Lake Watershed District, this approach, has really stuck around even today. So, looking at the canopy, looking at curb miles, looking at the connectivity to watershed, to other water bodies and, BMPs in the watershed, et cetera. The street type and the land use, certainly are impactful here. And so all of those lane miles then were converted to an enhanced plan. And as the city has, started to work with that plan, I've always really respected Mike Kinney specifically at the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District and other program managers out there, looking at these really cost-effective solutions. That's the way that they become more realistic for communities, to manage these types of programs. And so, when you're looking at an enhanced plan here relative to other baseline conditions or maximum efforts, at $182 per pound in the Forest Lake watershed and $229 per pound phosphorus recovered, estimated in the Clear Lake watershed. These are right now by far the most cost-effective BMPs that the city of Forest Lake has. So that investment in staff time to operate the sweeper, the maintenance that goes into the sweeper and ultimately replacement costs for the sweeper, all really translate to some of the most cost-effective solutions we have to meet TMDL and wastewater allocation goals. So as the city started to, review their plan, man, I'm having a hard time getting these slides to transition. Sorry. As the city started to look at their sweeping frequency, they predicted something like 7 to 12 sweepings per year and landed at, in some cases, more than 14. So as staff time became available, they were able to enhance the project even more. The estimated recovery was actually like 1.7 times more than what was predicted. And actually the sweeping ended up being more cost effective per pounds of TSS removed here since 2019. So some really great results. On this next slide, I'm actually going to move through it quickly. Yeah, Maggie, I think I'm not able to actually advance the slides, so if you could help me out there. Paula shared this exact screen in one of her early presentations this morning. And my apologies, these numbers I think are actually wrong. So this actually shows that the total phosphorus recovered was less than what was predicted, but that is not true. Ultimately all of those results showed that it was more. And so the city, again, is using these numbers to help track their goals, their MS4 goals here in terms of wastewater allocation. And this is, just an example of some of that documentation. The data showed that there was something like, 411 parts per million average P removed, or 0.19 pounds per curb mile. Outside of the new street sweeping tracking tool, we've been using those numbers to sort of scale versus the amount of solids recovered to estimate the TP removed. And so that has been tracked now since 2018 towards the city's wastewater allocation goals. Here are the 3 wraps to date, the 3 educational wraps. As part of the Clean Water Fund, there was an educational component that came with this too. So the city has actually replaced this wrap a few times. We're looking at doing that one more time here in 2026 with some new information. But this has been wonderful. It's really easy to see the sweeper out combing the neighborhood when it's super colorful and has some educational signage on it and so on. So this has been a really fun process for the city of Forest Lake to update the wrap on the sweeper, and just get the word out there about the importance of the street sweeping effort. We do have some planned next steps. We've been talking with the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District again about doing a second generation of this enhanced plan. Maggie mentioned that these plans should evolve and we should be reassessing them every year. I think that comes down to some of this planning effort too. So what has happened over the last 10 years of this project? How has the tree canopy evolved in the city of Forest Lake as trees grow up? Is there anything else that we need to modify here based on those water quality results? I'm also very interested in correlating that to a pond sedimentation study that was completed back around the same time as the enhanced street sweeping plan started. And so have the rates of sediment accumulation, can we track those through pond assessments as well? And can we predict, the future operational and maintenance needs of those ponds based on all of this data that we've collected over the years? So I'm very interested to see if the rate of accumulation in those wet sedimentation ponds has slowed. One thing I don't have on here too, but was touched on, the early sweepings have a real solid chance of picking up road sand and salt from winter maintenance operations. And so I'm very curious if we can quantify the amount of chloride in those sweepings. And maybe this has happened already in some other communities or areas, but I'm very curious if that is part of a chloride reduction strategy here too. So those are our planned next steps in Forest Lake. I think that brings me to the end of my topic here, and happy to answer some questions here at the panel discussion in a bit. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Tim. Um, that was great. And I'm really glad to see that what Mike Kinney's been talking about for a long time, which is like how this street smearing affects the BMPs. I'm glad to see that pond sedimentation study connection. That's great. Uh, well, we're going to move right along, and Evan Sieben is up next from the city of Woodbury. Take it away, Evan.
Yep. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Evan from the city of Woodbury. I'm the streets manager here. So you've kind of heard information here from a watershed district and Tim with Bolton Mink. How does the program work for the city of Woodbury? So hopefully my slide will advance here. So the city of Woodbury has 3 different watershed districts in it. The South Washington Watershed District, the Ramsey Washington Metro Watershed District, and the Valley Branch Watershed Districts. South Washington Watershed is actually our largest. They take up about 2/3 of the city of Woodbury, and Ramsey is about, I'll say, just a little bit less than a third, and Valley Branch does not have any streets that are curbed in that watershed district in Woodbury. So South Washington Watershed District actually approached us in 2022 with a enhanced street sweeping program. As you've seen in other slides of other people, separated out tree canopy and what the plan all entailed, where we should be sweeping more often, and how to have a really good enhanced street sweeping program. When they approached us, we talked a lot about what's this look like? What's the cost going to be for the city of Woodbury? Being a streets manager, that's always a cost because we're going to, or a concern because we're going to have to talk to council about how are we going to fund this? How are we going to maintain brooms? How are we going to move forward with getting rid of all the extra material? How are we going to make this project successful? So during that time, slide will move to the next. So during that time, we worked on partnership agreements with both South Washington and our Ramsey Washington Metro Watershed District. South Washington went into a longer term agreement with us. Right now, they're fully funding 2 people to sweep every day in the city of Woodbury and get rid of their extra material, pay for sweeper maintenance. It's really a beneficial agreement for the city of Woodbury. And then Ramsey Washington Metro, it's a yearly agreement. And we show both watersheds what all of our data is. So this is just a snippet of some of the data that we get from, we try to sweep our Ramsey Washington Metro Watershed District just once every month. And some of our other areas we're sweeping 2, possibly 3 times a month. This is just a sample of the data that we provide to the watershed districts. We track everything that we do to show the cost of what we're being reimbursed for. And just that it's working. So this month, just in August of this last year, you can see what our totals of what we pulled off of just 153 miles of road. The program has really been beneficial to us as a public works. We only used to sweep our streets twice a year, once in the spring, once in the fall. We were just meeting our MS4 requirements. Now we're out sweeping every day. We're still out sweeping this week, and probably next week after we get some freezing temperatures, we'll probably be done for the year, unless we get those warm days in December and January. Then we do send out sweepers if it's above freezing. So really been a good program for us. It's helped us support some of the other things that we do. It helped us get a couple more staff members that also help us plow snow in the winter. So it's been a really beneficial program and it's been really a success for us. You have my contact information up on the screen if anybody has any further follow-up questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Evan. So now we've got roughly about 10 minutes for a panel discussion. So I'm encouraging everybody who's participating today to put your questions in the Q&A section, not in the chat, and then upvote the ones that you want to hear the most. But I'd like to kick things off with a question of what advice would you have to somebody who is doing traditional sweeping, maybe just once in the spring and once in the fall, and they're looking to do this? What is one tidbit of advice that would be really helpful for them as they're getting started? And maybe we can start in the order that we presented. We'll start with Justine.
Yeah, I guess I would say if you're just sweeping once in the spring and once in the fall, you're in a very, very good position because anything you do beyond that will be above and beyond and will help improve your waters. And there's a lot of grant money locally from your watershed districts or at the state to support that work. And, you know, at that low level of frequency, it's incredibly cost effective to, you know, even more than double your effort. So you'll have very competitive proposals.
All right, Tim.
Yeah, and maybe Evan will echo this too, but I think from an MS4 perspective, you know, this is really one of the most cost-effective solutions we have right now to meet your wastewater allocation. So if you're really, you know, exploring an enhanced street sweeping program and want to track it towards the TMDL, do some testing, you know, so you can sort of customize your data, you know, to the tracked and anticipated removals that you'll see. I think that's been something very beneficial to the city of Forest Lake. I'm really looking forward to seeing how we can start to quantify operations and maintenance costs too of stormwater ponds moving forward.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of great results from what we've been doing. I'd say from a city's perspective or a streets manager perspective, the biggest challenge that we had was the material management. What to do with the sweepings once you get them, and once you have that set up, everything does run smoothly.
All right, we've got a question from Henry Stetlin. What material are the brushes on these machines made out of? I would guess this is something about maybe some microplastics and stuff. Some concern about that.
Evan?
I can go ahead and take that one. So our gutter brooms are like a metal hybrid. They last a long time. They are metal. Our sweepers that we go out with every day, they only have gutter brooms. They don't have a main broom underneath them. They're all regenerative air, so they force air down at the pavement and then it sucks it back up into the hopper. So there is no actual broom underneath the main part like a traditional sweeper. So it's just the gutter brooms.
All right, got another question for you. How have residents responded to the increased street sweeping schedules?
I'll maybe, you know, I think Dave Adams is the public works director in City of Forest Lake. We've talked about this a little bit before. Having a big bright banner on the side of the sweeper, you know, that has some educational messaging, I think helps promote that. You know, we've talked a little bit about trying to build some social media presence around the sweeper too, and you know, and tracking how much material is being picked up, and you know, a spot the sweeper sort of you know, approach to this, or naming it, you know, like I think North Dakota does with their plows. But you know, so I think there's a way to engage the public, you know, in really positive and meaningful ways, so that it doesn't feel like, you know, the sweepers out there needlessly, you know, or you know, disturbing the public by you know, extra sweeping. So the wrap has been really successful in Forest Lake, and since we're looking to switch that up here in 2026, it'll be fun to see what we come up with. But Yeah, building education around it, I think helps.
We also do a ton of education. We wrap our sweeper just like Forest Lake does. Couple of our sweeper operators have gone as far as handing out little ducks, and kids love that. We're actually trying to right now go through the process of branding them and trying to get a QR code on them so that it takes them to a site to give more information about what we're doing and why we're doing it. Our sweeper operators are great in that aspect, that they do a lot of that PR stuff for us when they're out in the public. Simple as stopping at a lemonade stand and talking about it. It really gets the community involved in it.
Yeah, and
Christine, how about the cities, yeah, that you work with?
yeah, I'll chime in too that we've had quite a bit of like local press coverage on our enhanced sweeping lately in City of Coon Rapids and City of Spring Lake Park, usually surrounding like receipt of state grant dollars, the city was able to get a free sweeper, that kind of thing. And there's been a ton of positive comments, on social media and so forth on that. So it seems like residents really like that this is kind of a win-win of, letting the local dollars go further, towards something that's clean water and cleaner streets and better aesthetics. So we've been really pleased with that. And then, we hear comments from our, board of managers and city council members that they're getting positive feedback. I just saw something in City of Spring Lake Park minutes that they had like a public comment thanking them for the increased sweeping. So it's rare to get thank yous, I guess. And it's nice that this is a favorable practice.
Oh, that's so great. So each of you mentioned like the partnership between your city or your watershed district and cities. And it's such like a strong connection, and it seems to be a catalyst for all this stuff to happen. Is there any advice to those who are looking to make those partnerships, or a little bit of a story on how these partnerships developed?
The
Oh,
city of Woodbury's worked through in the past a lot with CCIP grants through the watershed for equipments to reduce salt. So it was just a natural partnership. They approached us with this program along with they've also approached us with other treatment activities for stormwater. So it really wasn't a far stretch when they approached us for this. We've always had a relationship with our watershed districts because city believes in doing the right thing. So
That's great.
Yeah, I will say from the watershed perspective, we had kind of a lukewarm reception to this idea of enhanced sweeping plan at first. They don't want some lady at the watershed district telling them how to sweep. But we've really made progress by like meeting them where they're at, not just talking to them over Zoom, but, coming in, bringing donuts, going to lunch, asking like the operators, if you had $100,000, what would you spend it on? What is annoying you in your sweeping program, and kind of working that angle.
I have the luxury of working with lots of communities across Minnesota, and I think just even meeting the minimum standard, of an unfunded program like your MS4, or trying to find ways to go above and beyond, a minimum regulatory requirement can be costly, and so those funding partnerships and understanding grants and how to best leverage them, with or without others, and then just the solidifying those strong partnerships, it always pays off, I have a lot of respect for, for communities and watershed districts, two of which are on the call with us today, that have developed those partnerships, because it's just such a great way to get those projects off the ground and moving.
All right, thanks. I think we have time for, I'm going to try to squeeze in one more question. Do you think there's room for or merit in municipalities adopting ordinances that require property owners to reasonably remove leaf and litter, similar to what is commonly required for sidewalk, snow, and ice removal? What do you think? Based on the
we're,
cities, like the
we're
communities that
definitely
you work
not
with.
there. We're definitely not there yet. Would it be a program that would be, yes, it would help water quality. It's very hard for us to enforce that on a resident though.
Mm, true.
Yeah, I maybe just in my observation, Evan, I see that too. The line between the MS4 and the private side, of stormwater management is really a narrow line, and we start to cross that a little bit with things like pet waste and chlorides and stuff. But um, that'd be tough. That'd be tough to do and enforce. To Evan's
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, and I'll
Um,
I'll chime in too that, a lot of cities do have ordinances of like how you can deal with your grass clippings and things like that, blow them off the street. But I think anything beyond that is really, really hard to enforce. So I'll give a plug for those, voluntary practices, the Adopt the Drain program, and kind of more incentive based and behavior change might be the way to go on that.
All right. Well, thank you all for presenting and sharing your success stories today. This was great. For those of you listening in, we recorded this and we'll make it available later next month so you can share it with others who weren't able to attend. And just thank you, Justine and Tim and Evan. Like this was great. If you guys want to learn more, you can go to our Clean Sweep website and you can reach out to me and Paula. We'll also be sharing the presentations, like PDFs of the presentations today after this, as well as links to some of these programs. So thank you very much for joining us today. We appreciate it and hope to see you soon. Bye.